Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. So today I have with me Russ Morgan, and he's the Commercial Innovations Director at Ohme. And we've met a few times and it's been brilliant, and you've started listening to the podcast even, Russ, so thank you for
Listen, I say what I'm going to do and I do what I'm going to say, so I made sure to listen to it. Yeah, it's great.
Love it. Thank you. And you know that this is just a conversation. It's never been, we've been chatting beforehand, and I'm going to be slipping a few things in about our conversation, but
Great.
just not yet.
All right, you let me know.
I will, absolutely. So thank you for joining. Let's talk a little bit about you and your background. So obviously you told me before we started recording, you've been a lover of tech for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah.
What did you end up doing before this role and becoming a citizen in the UK as well even?
Yeah, as of last week, it's official. I swore an oath to the king and all of his descendants. Is very official with the mayor. Yeah, how far back do we go? Like, I think when I was 14, I built my first computer from scratch, and I think I built a website as well, and I have always loved how technology can push us forward. And at that time, it was the internet and how it connected us. Eventually, I got to work a little bit in mobile phones with Samsung quite a bit. And then I started traveling the world and working in different countries. So I moved from Toronto to Dubai, and then Singapore, and then eventually London. We're all working in sort of tech. And then when I came to London, I actually came as a co-founder of a technology company.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a service marketplace focused on connecting customers to service providers. So anything from a handyman to a personal trainer to a photographer, and we grew to about 35 employees. We were running it for 7 years, and about 40% of our revenue was associated with in-person events like weddings. And then something happened in this world. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where all events grind to a halt. I think it's called COVID. Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So that was the end of that company. But it was an amazing journey, building something from scratch like that. And then the day I was supposed to be handing over the keys to the company that bought us, my wife gave birth to our first child. So talk about a crazy day. And then I happened upon this business called Ohme, who at the time were looking to grow and looking to add some people. And I had a great conversation with both their chairman and their CEO. And I've been there for the last 3 years.
Fantastic. So Ohme was founded originally in 2017, wasn't it? It was David Watson. Was he the founder, or is he the CEO?
Yeah, so he's the CEO and the director and one of the co-founders, or
Right.
I would say the main co-founder. Is really there was an impact investing firm, there still is, called Temporis. They invest and have invested billions in sustainability. So whether it be wind farms or battery technology, or I believe right now they're even building a city or a town in Cork, not a town, but hundreds of houses, all focused on sustainable investment. And one thing that David realized early on is there is and there will be a lot of volatility in energy markets, and the answer that he felt would be to that volatility would be EVs and a smart charger that could help shift charging to greener and cheaper times. So that was their idea and concept really early on, and it's really come to fruition from an idea to something that's now in the market and now helping customers save money in the environment.
Fantastic. So Ohme provide home charging, don't you, to actually facilitate or what David was wanting in kind of with the EV sector and actually
That's
building it to get, kind of connecting it.
Yeah, domestic home charging. It's I think when I started, there were so many different chargers in the market. I know there's been there's a lot fewer now, but we focused on a couple core things. One was being more than just an outlet, right? And I think that the back end technology of an Ohme enables that really smart and dynamic charging. So we work with some of the big energy companies to deliver some what's called dynamic tariffs. So instead of just having a cheap window overnight, we enable things like, look, if the wind is blowing or the sun is shining and renewable energy is abundant and available, well, that's a good time to charge your car. But we don't expect individual customers to know when that time is. So the charger can dynamically, hence the word, go on and off based on those greenest and cheapest times, helping, I guess, your wallet and the environment at the same time.
That's brilliant because, I think a lot of people don't. When you've got people who are new to EVs, they're learning so much, aren't they?
100%.
No, and we're talking about, yes, it drives a bit differently, but it charges differently, and there are multiple different options and the ways that people need to learn. The things that people need to learn about charging is a bit in some ways it can come across as mind-blowing, can't it? So if you can simplify all of that on the home side, that makes a massive difference.
And any new technology is scary, right? And of course you have these early adopters that are incredibly keen, and we're incredibly grateful for the people who originally took on Ohme and tried us out. But what we have invested a lot in is, to your point, the customer experience. Right? I think a lot of the challenges we face as an industry right now are not going to be challenges in 5 years time, right? If you wiped everyone's memory and you said, hey, here's a car, go figure out what a petrol station is, that in itself is a technology that people need to understand, and we have that same sort of hurdle. So aside from looking at the customer experience and having educational videos and content, we actually invest a lot in sending our team to dealerships to help educate the dealers, not just on the charging technology, but what it's like to have an EV and how really great that technology is.
And actually, we were talking about this beforehand, weren't we? About making sure that those conversations with the dealerships, if you're going to, and I've had this experience, and I was telling you about it, wasn't I? If you're going to a dealership and you're new to EV, you need that conversation about charging, home charging, to be like front and center, and it's got to be easy to understand, and it is getting that message out there to those dealerships, isn't it? And it's not just the dealerships, is it? It's prior to that, it's making sure that the OEMs, the manufacturers, are understanding. They understand that this is really important. It's a bit like the old you still get it in a car, don't you? You get your manual in there, that you kind of read through your manual, and what do you do here? You get it online, you get a book, whatever. But you want it to be simple. You need to be able to understand it. I've sat in our car, gone through the manual, going, bloody hell.
I think what I often tell people is one of our jobs in the industry is to influence that conversation at the pub or that at the cafe, that when you are that first person in your friend group to get an EV, we want to make sure that that person is sharing the best experience possible. And to your point, making sure it's easy to understand, right? So when I often talk to customers, I'm less inclined to say, our charger charges at 7.4 kilowatts. Who knows what that is, right? Yeah. I could say if you plug in your car, we'll add 25 miles for every hour charge. Or to get from London to Bristol, it costs me £2.68. It costs me less than a cup of a coffee. Then it becomes a lot more tangible and people can really understand it. And when it comes to the big swings, really getting people over the fence, it's conversations like, I drove 5,000 miles last year and I spent about 117 pounds in fuel, right? You're going to be saving 1,000 pounds compared to a combustion engine. So when you put it in those terms, you can even help the naysayers, get across the line.
And that, I mean, God, there's so many of them out there, isn't there? At
Oh,
the
of
moment,
course.
there's so many, and it is about kind of getting. How do you think? I mean, obviously, this, what you guys are doing, but how do we need to be addressing this negativity? And I talk about it a lot in the podcast. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts? I mean, how do we move this?
So I'll say open, honest, and non-judgmental conversations. When people are unfamiliar with the technology, they don't want to feel talked down to, right? They just want it to be communicated with in their terms and things that they understand, right? And not pushing people into vehicles that maybe aren't right for them right now, or they may not be ready for the transition. But if you are having really great conversations and you're getting people in EVs to even do a test drive, it really helps. So we do a lot of work with some of our partners where we go to these events that they host, and it's getting people in EVs. And so case in point, I had a customer come up to me and she said, hey, I think I know what you guys do, but I'm getting a hybrid. Guaranteed I'm getting a hybrid. That's the best thing for me because in the last 2 years, I did 7,000 miles or 14,000 miles. And I said, okay, so that equates to about 30 miles a day in driving. I used a calculator. I'm going to be honest, I didn't calculate it that quickly. And I go, do you know the average EV has over 200 miles in range? So the amount of driving you do, you're never going to use that up in a given day. And if you have a charger at home, that means you're leaving with a full tank of electrons, right?
Yeah.
So you get the benefit of cheap electricity at home, and you don't have to worry about running out. And yes, there will be those odd long trips. But myself as an example, I only used public charging 4 times in the last year, right? It's going to be few and far between, and the network is so great right now that you're going to benefit from it. So I know I'm rambling a bit, but I think the simple answer is frequent non-judgmental conversations, and to challenge people when what they say is completely incorrect. And my wife was having an ultrasound the other day, and the person doing it, he's like, oh, what do you do? And I mentioned EVs. He goes, well, I hear the batteries run out on the motorway and you're going to be
Oh
stuck.
my God.
And I'm like, no, actually, in hearing the AA speak, that's actually less likely than running out of petrol. And we had this really engaging conversation until my wife said, can we just focus on the ultrasound? I go, yeah, fair point. Got a little too riled up.
We're going to segue, right, now that you've talked about this, because I think I want the audience to know this.
Mm-hmm.
When this episode goes out, you will have your second small child. And when you're talking about the ultrasound, you probably need to say how many weeks your wife is
Oh,
pregnant.
well, I'll just give you days. The due date is technically in 7 days. And the baby's in position, and any day, I may need to leave this podcast because it's
Probably
happening.
not.
So listen, I'm now working from home. It's imminent. And my wife is equally eager and terrified about the coming of the second baby. But yeah, it's life, right? It's one of these things that we all have going on and outside of our careers, but it's also really exciting. Like really funny enough, my daughter when we were on a trip and we ended up renting a car and it was a hybrid. I'm sorry, it wasn't a fully electric car. And as soon as we got in the car, she's like, noise, what is this noise? And she was so confused that the car made noise because the car she's used to is completely silent.
Silent.
And that's what it's going to be. Everyone is going to benefit from this great technology, and the new generation is going to say, "You put what into your cars? Stuff that exploded and created all this
Not
toxic."
from a liquid. Why did you do that?
That's great. That can't be safe. Why would you? Yeah, it's amazing.
But we've got used to it for so long, haven't we? I mean, it's kind of cars as in, petrol engine cars or diesel engine cars have, been around for such a long time, and it is a massive change. But like you say, your 3-year-old daughter and your little one who's coming soon, that's all they'll just start seeing that. And like you
Yeah,
said, there will
but
be occasions that you'll sit, there'll be a smelly, petrol or diesel car or whatever. But on the whole, their life is going to be electric, isn't it?
one of my first jobs, I worked in the equivalents of a Curry's in Canada, and I sold
Yeah.
computers, right? And people, oftentimes, is their first home computer that they were buying from me. And back then, the big fear was putting your credit card online. How could you do that? It's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine, someone even, taking a second thought at doing it, right? It's become so ingrained. And EVs, it's the exact same thing, in 5, 10 years time, in 5 years time, it's just going to be so, it'll be the norm and everyone will be used to it, right? And I think at that point, people will be like, okay, now let's talk about autonomous driving, but that's even further ahead, so we'll see.
Absolutely. And actually, do you know what? I was thinking back because I am old, and I was thinking back to, when we were hitting the end of 1999 and everybody was talking about the 2000 and the
Okay.
potential, the millennium bug, and oh my God, all these things might break down and things will explode and we won't be able to connect and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's sort of that, isn't it, in a way? It's kind of going back to that, oh my God, this big thing's going to happen and it's all going to turn to go
So
pear-shaped.
I, I was at a New Year's party at a house, and someone at midnight, the year 2000, switched off the main breaker to the house.
Oh, on purpose, the little buggers.
It was really funny. We're like, oh no, but everything turned out okay, didn't it?
It blooming did. And like you say, so 24 years on,
Yeah.
we are in a totally, very, very different space. We've got AI, we've got, like you say, possibly heading to autonomous vehicles, different ways of fueling our vehicles, different ways of driving them. And actually, in some ways, we're being given an opportunity to do things differently
Yeah, absolutely. I
for
completely
for
agree.
your kids and my son's kids whenever they happen. And sorry, James, if you're listening, I'm not trying to say you have to have babies soon.
Yeah, no, it's true. And well, like, and even, you mentioned your son's in university now. The job that he's going to be working, probably wouldn't have existed, 20 years ago,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
the new industries and new roles, it's amazing how quickly we are advancing as a society. Technology is just, and I don't know the exact stats, but it's like the time between the radio and the television versus the television and the PC versus the PC and the internet. Like, it's the S curve we're on. If you look at the technology as a whole, it's just amazing how quickly we're growing.
And do you know what? It's just come back to me. I would say probably when my son was a baby, so, kind of 19 years ago, one of my husband's friends, and I can't remember who he worked for, but I remember him saying, "Oh, these mobile phones, they're not going to, we don't need them to turn into mini computers. They're never going to be. They're just going to be like a brick. They'll just be there for phone calls and texts and stuff." And look where we are now.
Oh yeah, when the first telephone came out and they were going to use them for businesses, they only estimated they needed one telephone per floor of an office building. That's it, right? And now it's complete. Obviously, everyone, it's glued to their hip now, right?
I
It's
know.
it's
Yeah,
amazing.
and in your hand. And I mean, there are some fantastic things about mobile phones, but there are some things that, like the way that we communicate face to face.
Yes, I
Even
agree.
now, this is great. These are conversations that are needed rather than just, you kind of see it, and I've done it, my husband's done it, we've sat in a restaurant or a pub or somewhere and you end up being on your phone. It's just like, oh my God, we just need to learn to communicate a little bit differently. And maybe, like I say, maybe some of the stuff that will be given, besides the way we're moving, electrification, everything else, maybe we'll be given other chances to actually start communicating differently.
Yeah, I think the importance of human connection isn't it couldn't be more important, in an age where, people can just become so engrossed in their phone and the different platforms that are really they're incentivized to keep you engaged. And that's where I always prefer to have, face-to-face meetings, actually talk to people and learn from them because that's where, the magic happens.
And if we step back a little bit and we talk about that kind of being engrossed in the phone and that face-to-face, contact, but also take it back to that kind of the stuff that we were talking about with regards to the negativity around electrification, about EVs, etc., etc. That the fact that we are so engrossed in our phones, probably gives people who can access that ability to influence people. We've done that. We've given that ability, haven't we? Like you said, people are being held in. It's that level of fear of missing out, because you now know that, oh my God, there's this thing happening, and if I don't join that, I'm going to be missing out. 10, 15 years ago, you weren't giving a monkeys because you wouldn't have known anything about it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword, but I think, the more proactive we are across all channels, the better. I think I was surprised to see a really positive EV story the other day, and I looked at the comments section, and it was so polarizing. Some people are like, yes, this is great, and other people just, again, more sort of misinformation. So it's, I have sections in presentations I give talking about fighting the FUD, or the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And it's how do you break down these common objections that have no basis in truth, and that's often what we need to focus on.
And if we kind of go back to, I use this quite often, back in Henry Ford's day, and he said, if people had have actually asked me if I'd have asked them, they'd have said they wanted a faster horse.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I have a friend that uses that quote quite often, and that's I think you should be listening to customers. I think that's critical for the success of any organization, but you should also bring to light technology that can make their lives easier and better, or make our in terms of the environment, make our global lives easier and better.
Yeah. So if we go back, obviously we're supposed to be talking about Ohme here. Let's go back to Ohme.
You?
And you. We'll come back to you in a bit. So you have you've talked about partnerships, and you've talked about energy providers. How has that helped? So who are you partnering with? I know kind of Octopus is one of them. Massive massive partnership, isn't it? But why is that important in your mind?
Sure. I would say we're a very privileged organization to work with a lot of really great companies. And I think one of the reasons why we've been so successful in building these partnerships and these relationships is two-front, right? It's one, having a forward-looking technology. So it's like back in the day, and we're not just looking at creating another plug. We're looking at creating something that's intelligent and dynamic, and that can really help customers save money in the environment. So that's, if you look at some of the energy retailers we work with, whether it be Octopus or Ovo, our charges work with them all. It's helping design and create some of the world leading energy tariffs, right? And some of the early tests, I think we were one of the first with Octopus, if I'm not mistaken, to create an agile tariff where customers got paid to charge at certain times.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So things like that have helped both of our companies grow quite successfully. And then I think, aside from the technology, I think customer is the most important thing. It's that customer experience, and it's putting that at the forefront. It's helping customers that are having difficulty with this new technology, and really walking them through step by step. What I often, when training people, it's about dropping everything to help that customer that has an urgent request, but not forgetting that customer who you committed to call in 15 minutes time, right? And I think a lot of organizations take for granted, that customer experience, and being empathetic and putting themselves in the shoes of the customer. And as a result, we've been able to win some really great partnerships. And one that I was involved in from the get-go was Motability Operations. And I know you're familiar with them, but in case people listening aren't, they're an organization that operate the Motability scheme. And if you are a customer that lives with a disability, you have an opportunity to take your disability allocation, or a portion of that, towards a vehicle. And they want to make sure that no driver is left behind. They want to make sure that if you live with a disability, that you should be at the forefront of this great technology and what it has to offer. And when we started with them, it was purely a focus of how can we make how can we complement their already exceptional customer experience. And we've been able to grow that, over the last 3 years. And because of some of that work, we now work with some of the largest OEMs. So whether it be, Volkswagen or Hyundai or Audi, they recognize what a really great managed installation experience is. And we provide that aside from just the charger itself.
So so you're saying about the installation experiences. Let's just talk about that a little bit. So how does it work with you guys? So can people come to you direct, or do they go to your network of installers, or do they go through like a company through like Octopus? How does it all kind of pull together?
Really good question. And there's lots of ways of getting Ohme chargers now. When I first started, one of my mandates was to help build our managed installation experience. And now we have much smarter people running it. But, if you are a customer, you can absolutely come directly to our website, and you come through Ohme, and we ask you some questions about your property to understand exactly what needs to be done. And then we will send out an engineer to undertake the work, and we do work with a network of really great top-tier installation partners across the UK. Aside from coming direct to us, of course, we do have partnerships with a lot of these major OEMs. So oftentimes they have special offers, whether it's a discounted rate for an Ohme charger with what we call standard installation, or sometimes they actually bundle it with the car as well. And in those situations, what we do is we have an interface directly with the dealer. They let us know that, hey, Liz has just got this new Hyundai. She'd like to take you up on an Ohme charger. And then what we do is, again, we send you that digital survey for you to complete. And then we'll have someone out, in a matter of weeks to install your charger.
So I've got a question, because in the UK, and I don't know what it was like in Canada when you were there, but we have really weird kind of housing stock sometimes. It's not all, we were quite lucky with our charger, because our consumer unit, our kind of fuse board it's not far away from the front of the house. But some places, some people's houses, the consumer unit's at the back of the house, the drive's at the front of the house. How do you manage that? So you're kind of saying about the customer fills that information in. What happens if they haven't got a clue what they're doing, and they're kind of like, well, it's there, but I got no idea how you get it to the front?
It's been a learned process for us, right? And, we've done so many installations now that nothing surprises us. We've seen, and we've done installations from the center of London all the way up to Orkney, right? We do every location. And what we define as a standard installation covers, I'll say 75-80% of installs. And then some customers do have some of these quirks in relation to their properties. So fortunately for us, the digital journey we put people on has always been sort of adapting, updating, and we've always been improving upon it, right? Because we want to ask customers the least amount of questions, while also ensuring that our team has enough information so that when we show up to do the install, it's successful. So some things we may ask a customer to do is take a simple video of where their fuse board is versus where their car is. And then just that video alone gives us a lot of information where we can understand the exact scope of the install. Now, of course, obviously we do work with a lot of customers that have physiological impairments. Sometimes they can't get those photos that they need, but we have options, what we call sort of an in-home survey, where we'll actually send an engineer out, capture that information on their behalf, and then just get the job done that way. And then, of course, anything that falls out sort of our standard definition of installation, we'll quote the customer, and they'll be able to decide what they want to do from there. But obviously, because we have the scale that we do, we can give customers really great rates.
Because it's funny, isn't it? Because I've got a friend whose husband is due to get an EV this month through his business, through the company he works for, and it's not you guys, but the company that there was an agreement with their business who they'd use, and basically, because of the fact that, like, my friend and her husband didn't realize about the kind of the charger, and it's not something you can just plug into a socket, you know.
Yeah, no.
And actually, she was finding it quite stressful because of it. You know what it's like? It's just life, isn't it? And you throw charging and EVs into a busy day, and somebody who's kind of having stress at work and stuff like that. So I basically kind of gave us some information about, right, okay, this is the reason why you can't just plug it in. It doesn't work like that. We're talking about, you know, a 7 kilowatt charger that needs these, you know. I'm not an expert, but to give her that information, because she was being asked questions that she couldn't answer.
It's a major electrical appliance, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, just like getting a not even a dishwasher, but, you know, say you had to get a hot tub installed or something like that. You know, there needs to be some work done potentially on the consumer unit that allows for that. There needs to be cabling put in. But what we do is these step-by-step, you know, videos and information where we say, you might not know what earth bonding is, as an example, because I didn't know what earth bonding was before I started here.
And why would you?
But here's a photo of what it looks like, and here's where you can typically find it. So if you can grab us a quick snap, great, we'll be able to do that, right? So, you know, it's you know, as soon as customers go through the journey, it's pretty simple for them to understand exactly what we're looking for. But we have a really big team that we call our customer success team, and their job is purely to help people through that process. So if you have a question, if you're unsure about it, we'll be able to help. And the other thing we do on the post installation side, because as you know, there are people that have, I guess, different technological profiles in relation to their comfort with technology.
Yeah.
The engineer will actually set up the app for the customer fully there, so they know exactly what to do, how to use it. So there isn't that barrier that gets faced as well. But yeah, it's something new, it's something different, but we'll help you every step of the way.
I love that, and that's brilliant. I mean, there was another lady that I've been talking to, a company that I've been working with, and she's just got an MG4, and they were looking at home charging, and I ended up asking her, do you know the difference between tethered and untethered home chargers? And that's the other thing that, you know, she hadn't had any experience or knowledge or understanding about this. So I was kind of saying to her, right, okay, if you want to get your cable out of the car every time you charge, then that's your untethered, because there's no cable on the front, you know. But if you want something where, you know, depending on your life and how it works and whether you can do this, like, you know, actually the cable will be attached and all you do is just plug it in, you know, trying to just explain that, because she didn't know this.
When we launched our untethered charger in the UK and offered it to our customers, you know, one of the more common questions we had was, well, which one will work with my car?
Yeah.
The answer is obviously both, right? But you know, obvious to me, obvious to you, but not to obvious to someone who's brand new to this technology, right? So we make it very clear. We send through communications that say, here's the difference. But yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of the difference. It's really just down to convenience. You know, for me and most of our customers, it's, you know, I get home, it's already attached to the wall, I can plug it right in. But there are some few customers who, you know, if their charge is at the front of the house, they may not want the aesthetic of having a cable there at all times. It's really just down to personal preference. But the good news is, you know, both options are available.
And that's brilliant. The fact that you're offering that, you know, and they're quite attractive looking chargers, you know, they're just.
I think so. I think what annoys my wife, though, is whenever we go on walks, I often stop in people's driveways and start walking up and seeing what charger they have. And she's like, stop walking on strangers' driveways. I'm like, no, but I have an EV. I just need to take a look.
I know. You're a bit like it. I'm a geek like that as well. I've always been a bit of a geek about tech stuff over the years. And various things, I'll kind of go, oh yeah, anywhere that I've worked and it's a bit kind of, there's a bit of technology in that, oh, I remember that. But yeah, oh look, what charger have they got, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I totally get it. Not about the walking up people's drives. I do tend to kind of not do that.
Fair enough. I try to avoid it now. Yeah, it freaks people out a little bit.
So can I just ask you, with regards to kind of so you said obviously working with companies like Octopus on the overnight tariffs and stuff like that. because we might have done it slightly different to your how you do it with your customers. We didn't end up going on to the overnight EV tariff with Octopus until we'd had our charger installed. Can you set a tariff up in advance that says, right, well, my install date is this date, and can you swap us over, or do you have to wait until the charger's installed and actually then you can move over to the tariff?
I think a really good question. I think you can do either. But that's just me thinking. You'd be better to contact your energy supplier, and they'd probably advise you of the best thing, whether it's a switch date or what have you. But what I will say, and we have been talking about tariffs, and oftentimes you take for granted what a tariff is. For people who are considering EV, research your tariffs. That's the one big tip. Because the last thing we want is to see, and I've seen customers on older tariffs that they're like, oh, I haven't changed it in the last 10 years. When you're getting an EV, you're doubling at least your energy consumption in your house. And like I said, if you're on the right tariff, it can cost you less than a cup of coffee to charge your car. So
absolutely. And actually, this is the thing, making sure that this is the communication thing. And I'm not just saying this isn't about you specifically at all. It's about making sure that whoever you are talking to as a new EV driver or potentially new EV driver are telling you this stuff as well. If you're buying a charger, that they're talking to you about the overnight tariffs. What is an overnight tariff? Because you don't want to be plugging your car in and paying what you were paying before, because actually you can get 7p per kilowatt, 7p per kilowatt hour on an overnight tariff. Why would you want to pay what you paid before when you can get it cheaper?
Yeah, exactly. And then a lot of people, and it's funny because as soon as someone starts driving an EV, they get it, right? It's just getting into that position. But a lot of people, that's a bragging point. They're like, let me tell you how much I've been paying on fuel whenever they're at, the pub and having a chat with their friends, which I really love to see.
And it's funny, and I've talked about this in the last few podcasts. One of my lovely friends, I love her to bits, I've known her for ages. She thinks EV charging's a faff. And I haven't shared this video with her yet because I'm waiting for the right time. But I've literally taken a video of, right, I'm in the car, my car charge says this. I'm literally taking, I'm taking my key and I've opened the thing on the car, and this is where I'm plugging in. And that's
like like I said, we work with a lot of customers with that live with disabilities and physiological impairments, and a home charging cable and gun is less weight than a petrol pump, right? It's easier to manage. For some of those customers, they historically they'd had to call ahead to the petrol station to have someone assist them. Whereas when it's at home, it's a lot more manageable. And
it's under your control, isn't it, really? And like you say,
because it's in your control, it's convenient, it's there. You don't have to, there's a spot where your car can reach and you can get in and out of quite easily. So it's a real game changer.
So so really, what we're saying, if you've got a driver you can charge at home, that is the best way. And I know there's quite a decent percentage of people that can't charge at home. I know that doesn't make it that.
Well, they say 28% of people don't. 40% of people in the UK don't have a driveway, but 28% of drivers, more succinctly, do not have a driveway. But hopefully next year, or maybe this year, the government's supposed to be coming out with guidance. We're going to see, cross pavement solutions and allowances, right? So these are things like, like cable trays, like Kerbal Charge. If you've seen the Dragon Dens episode, they're a perfect example where your cable comes to your house, it goes through a tray, so it doesn't create any sort of trip hazard, and then just plugs in your car. And I think hopefully at the end of this year, but definitely next year, we're going to see more councils coming along saying, yes, you can do this. Here's the process. And then we can enable that many more customers to get cheap home charging.
Yeah, and actually those kind of solutions have been around for a long time. We've probably just not seen them. I'm not saying specifically with EVs, but I've seen water channels go through, or various channels go through pavements, and and they're safe. It's not that all of these cable solutions will make sure that actually the pedestrian who's walking past where that cable, that cable solution is, they're not going to hurt themselves, because that's what would be the point to do that. That's what they're there for,
But like anything, it's a new technology that councils need to get used to and behind. But as more and more councils do, support this and have a process and have, an improved technology or technologies, then it'll become ubiquitous, and we'll be very happy with that. And the same thing exists with, EV charging and DNOs, right? DNO, they're district network operators, so the sort of local people that control your electricity is a simple term of that. They weren't used to so many connection requests for all these EV chargers, right? But they've adapted, and now the process is become quite smooth when it comes to connecting and notifying DNOs. So I think it's just a matter of time, and I think all the right people are pushing in the right direction, which is really good to see.
Yeah, I mean, we've just had a heat pump put in about kind of 6 weeks ago. Yeah. So we are fossil fuel free, flipping heck. And actually that kind of the whole situation with the district network operator, most of it was managed by the heat pump provider era. There were little tweaky things that actually I'd get a text, I'd be like, oh, while they were with me, going, what does this mean? But it was great. It was great. And like you said,
and I agree. The less paperwork a customer has to manage, the better. And when it comes to DNO stuff, obviously we would manage that. But even when it comes to this cross street stuff, I think or cross pavement, we need to look at a solution where the customer doesn't have to worry about much, where they just say, I want it, and great, we'll take care of the rest.
Oh, absolutely. So, like you say, the fact that you are providing a good customer experience, to me, that's so important. And actually, it's been part of my working life. It's always been kind of making sure that the customer experience is right. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you've got to think about the technology and the fact that some customers don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got
don't take anything for granted.
No, exactly. And kind of making sure that you provide enough information and this is, I always talk to people, because I've been working in improvement for years. I talk about the fact that people learn in different ways.
Yeah.
I
have, interestingly enough, I have an adult education degree. And that's one of the main themes that came out of that degree, was how people learn different ways and how you should do different, whether it's written, lecture, with different types of approaches.
Video, visual, written, shown.
To your point of, not taking things for granted, one thing I encourage everyone at Ohme to do, or I would say anyone listening to this to do, is just to talk to people about EVs. Because then you'll learn what their concerns are, what their thoughts are, where they're struggling, and then that'll allow you to adapt your approach to better service those individuals.
And actually, because if you don't, and you're just thinking what people want,
right,
then actually you're putting your own bias on it, and not the information that those people who you need to be talking to actually have.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely.
So I want to talk, because I know you've got to go very shortly, but I want to talk to finish off. We've talked about the baby, but you are a man of many talents, and I don't normally talk about this stuff on the podcast, right. But you shared with me about the fact that you do improv.
I do, yeah.
And I want to just finish off on this, because you've got to tell everybody what improv you do and why and how you got started, because that was just so interesting.
Sure. Everyone has their own hobbies. Some people play football, and I think I've always loved. I think everyone loves having fun at the end of the day, and I always enjoy laughing. Years and years ago in London, someone suggested I take an intro to improv. With this organization called Hoopla, who's the biggest sort of improv school in the UK. And it was, as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Because it's, when was the last time you pretended a dinosaur was chasing you, right? Is when you were a kid, right? Yeah. And you sort of tap into this this spontaneous creativity and play, and it teaches you really practical skills, as I was talking about, in terms of being adaptive. But I've sort of done it so much over the years. It's how I met my wife. And the more recently, in the last 5 years, I've been focused on, with my group, doing hip hop improv of all things. So
Just love it. Oh
yeah,
my
we have
God,
a live beatboxer on stage. We get audience suggestions, and we make up raps on the spot. So we've done everything from Camden Fringe to Edinburgh Fringe, and everything in between. So it's a lot of fun.
Right, okay. Can I throw this at you then?
Go on.
I bet you know what I'm going to ask you now.
Go on.
Can you do a 1 minute EV improv?
Yeah, of course I could.
Go Gadget.
No, hold on. Listen, Liz, there's a
Come
certain
on.
rule. So one of the things with improv is that you have a team and they have your back, right? It's kind of, it's funny. Stand-ups get it all the time when you meet someone who does stand-up. It's like, great, okay, be funny. And it's like, well, I kind of have a set, I have pattern, I have things I work into. But listen, if you or anyone comes to my show, our shows, I should say, track96.com, you can throw out EV as a suggestion, and trust me, I can rap about that for days.
I will make sure. So track96.com, I will make sure that is in the show notes. And I want to come and actually hear this, because that sounds fantastic. As I said to you, I am all about the chat.
Yeah. My only caveat is the next couple months I'm probably going to be taking care of a newborn. So
you are, absolutely. Yeah. But at some future date when you're kind of not changing nappies and helping your wife and all of that stuff and looking after your 3-year-old or your 0-year-old, X number of days year old, then I want to hear some of this stuff, because I think
fun. Listen, I can bring it. I bring the fire.
I definitely want to see it.
My hip hop name is Danger Russ.
Isn't it Danger Russ?
Yeah, well, I was debating between Danger Russ and Chival Russ, but I think I'm going to Danger Russ.
Oh, I love it. Right, I'm going to be looking at your website as well. So on that note, I'm going to finish, because I think that's a really, really good, a really kind of lightened point, because
I love it, and I recommend people try improv. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my top recommendations.
Oh my goodness.
Drive an EV and take improv. Those are my 2 tips.
I'm going to have a go. Yeah, I'm not saying it will be kind of hip hop improv, but I might have a little bit of a bash at that.
I like it.
And then maybe next time we can have a little, Anyway,
I'm ready.
I want to just say thank you to you, Russ. It's been it's been so lovely and interesting to talk to you. It really, really has.
Thank you, Liz.
I want to also say to you guys out there listening and watching, please, just even if it's just letting people know that Russ exists and the things that he does, and obviously about Ohme and everything like that, please just share the podcast. Please just share the episodes if you found it interesting, and make sure you visit the Ohme website. It's ohme-ev.com. I will put that in the show notes. You'll be able to find it in there. But just share this, because we always talk about kind of getting through the fear, uncertainty and doubt and the negativity that's out there. The only way for us to actually break out of it is by sharing the truth, and this kind of knowledge is just priceless. So Russ, thank you ever so much again for taking the time out. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else for listening and watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching Electric Evolution. I really love bringing you these weekly conversations about sustainability, renewables, and building a cleaner future together. If you're passionate about positive change, please like, subscribe, and share with others who also care about these topics. You can also download our white paper, Plugging into the Future, at fullcircleci.co.uk and join the discussion on improving sustainable transport, or email me at liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks for watching. Bye.